morning. We're filming here from the admin office at the library district on yet another bonus block for your quilt if you choose to make it. We thought it would be interesting for your quilt, so we're going to show you how to do it, and the block will be posted not as a separate month, but it'll be on the main page under a bonus block section. So if you choose to do it, great. And here's all the directions. Right, here's the tutorial, and then the directions will be there on the site. So this is the block. It is the Meet Me in St. Louis block. It is the 1904, symbolizes the 1904 World's Fair Ferris Wheel, which was a big part of what the people came to see during the World's Fair, among other things. Shortly after I made this block, I realized it had occurred to me that I had not seen the movie. So I did watch the movie as well to get into the spirit of things, and hence Meet Me in St. Louis, because they were going to the World's Fair that year, all the daughters of the family. So the library does have several copies of that movie. If you have an urge to watch it, just check it out, and there you go. So here we go, the Meet Me in St. Louis block, and don't freak out that it's hard or anything, because it's really not too hard. It is based on a block. Actually, I found this block online. It was a free pattern, and I put on the written instructions, the link to my inspiration is listed there if you want to take a look at her directions and kind of maybe get a different take on it. But she did it pretty much the same way. I added a couple of things. But the Dresden plate block is just a circular block. And for example, this is a pillow I made using the Dresden plate pattern. Dresden plate, it's just round like a plate. It has different blades in it, and it's just kind of a classic pattern that many quilters over the decades have made. This is an old quilt that I rescued from some antique mall or somewhere. It's also a Dresden plate. So Dresden plate is not just round. It has variations. Like this quilter did curved edges and pointy compass points, and then some fancy work in the center here. That was someone else that made that. And I just loved it because it had so much yellow and bright and cherry. And I rescued it for about $20 or something. This one was just a pillow I made for my daughter using the identical ruler that I'm using today for our Ferris wheel. Only the difference here, and notice the rickrack, because I do have a rickrack problem on most of my projects, so I do like the rickrack. It shows up every once in a while. But the difference between my blades of my Dresden plate pillow and the Dresden plate Ferris wheel is I chose to do the points on the edge, and that's totally an option. So Dresden plates can come in all sorts of edges, roundy, straight, pointy, and then there's some wild things that people are doing with Dresden plates even beyond that are kind of fabulous. So anyway, the Dresden plate is a very traditional block. So I found a great tutorial online that I started from there, and this is actually what her block looked like. It was kind of like this. Only I thought once I got it done, I thought it needed struts in it, like lines, to show that it was more Ferris wheely. So I pretty much took her block and then added the struts in the alternate pieces to make it look more like a Ferris wheel. And here's one that Cindy did. So the yellow is the struts. So I call this the blade. This would be the strut, just to differentiate just for you. So blades and struts. Okay. So I thought it looked more Ferris wheely. My mother, when I was showing her this block, she doesn't realize it's a symbolic block. So she said, you need to add little cars with lots of people on it right here. And I said, I'm not doing that. This is a Ferris wheel symbol. So if you want to do that, you could do that. But mine's going to stay just like this one. So, all right, so I'll start to show you how to do this. First thing you do is you're going to cut your background square about 13 and a half by 13 and a half. Cut it oversized, and then I pressed it because I knew Cindy forgot her iron today, so I pre-pressed this from home. So I pressed this both ways just to get a nice north-south, east-west crease, as I like to call it, in my background square. And that'll come into play a little bit later. Okay, so there's your north-south, there's your east-west. All right, so there. So the next part of this that's it's not even tricky, it's just you have to be really conscious of what you're doing. So the first thing you need to do is you need to make two strip sets, they're called, of what you want your blade to be. So here is the strip set of my blade. Actually, it goes this way. So my blue is closest to the center, and then I have my green, and then I have my yellow at the tip. I just decided to do it that way. Okay, and the sizes for these are on your paper. So this one starts out at 2.5. This starts out at 1 3/4, and this starts out at 1 1/4. And then you sew them together very carefully. And what I did that I did not do here, which caused me trouble later, sew these two together, then press this toward the large strip. So press it toward the blue. Press, 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 and then add the yellow and press it the same direction. So kind of press as you go instead of press at the end. Pressing at the end caused me some troubles today. So this is strip set for the blade. And then the next strip set you need to make is the strip set for the strut part. In this part, you can not do the strut part. It's up to you. So, and I believe it's this way. Yeah, okay. So this one is the strip set for the strut. So this is also a 2.5-inch piece. This is a 1-inch piece, so you get a little skinny 1.5 inch strut when all is said and done. And this is 2 inches. So you do the same thing. So sew this to this and press, and this time you press it away from the largest strip, which is this one. So press them that way. This one is pressed toward the big strip. This one is pressed away from the big strip. So get them all done. And there you go. There's your strip sets. Okay? So part of this is sewing. Take it slow, press a lot, and then be happy with what you have. And then we'll go from there. All right. So if you notice, your Ferris wheel, because this ruler that I'm going to use today is an 18-degree ruler, and if you take this is a 365-degree circle. So if you divide 18 into 360, excuse me, if you divide it into there, that gives you 20. So you have 20 blades. So you're going to be cutting 10 from this strip set, and you become cutting 10 from this one. Okay, and I'll show you how in just a second. And once they're cut out, then you just kind of sew them together in pairs like this. And then this is that. You're going to have 10 pairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you'll have 10 pairs. So one ruler that I would like to recommend, if you're an experienced quilter, you probably already own it. If you are a brand new quilter and you want to stay a quilter and get into it a little bit more, invest in one. It's worth having. If you're a quilter that this is your first project and you're never doing one ever again in your entire life, don't. So you don't need to have this, because I'm giving you a template that is the correct size in the pattern. Okay. But if you have any interest in quilting in the future, this is like very handy. You can do all sorts of fun things with this. So when you're cutting, and I'm going to write this on the template too. This is just my notes. So this shape, the little end is the blue end. So where's my, oh, there it is. Okay, so I want to put my little end on the blue end. So I'm kind of lining that up, and I just kind of make sure my seam kind of stays parallel with the lines on the, just make sure that kind of stays even with that little 2 designation there. And so there I'm cutting out one blade. And I may have to do this. And this is not the most efficient way to do it. I didn't want to go into detail on why it wasn't, but if you were making it a Dresden plate, you could make a better efficient use of your strips, but that's another day. So here you go. Here's one that matches this. Okay, so we do that 10 times, and I'll just do a couple more to show you. And I just kind of tried to keep, my line kind of about the same place. In a perfect world, if my seams were perfect, this would have been a 4.5-inch width. But for some reason, I was challenged today on that, as we sometimes are. Okay. All right, so there's 3, and I just have to do 7 more, and I'm just kind of cutting the same direction. This is the kind of the waist you're going to have on that. Cutting in the same direction, and I get 10 of these when all is said and done. Okay. Oh, but let me show you this. If by some chance you end up using the template, it is the same procedure. Okay. And I just noticed I gave that little pink template a little haircut, so try not to do that, because then as you give it a haircut each time, then you know what happens, it's bad at the end. Okay, see, and you get it, and it works just fine. So you do not have to go out and buy this template, but I tell you, it's pretty handy if you want to continue in quilting and enjoy it. It's a lot of options for it. Okay. Alrighty, so here's the other one. Okay, so this time, my fat background is the one that gets the little end. Okay. Make sure that's right. Yep, okay. And so, same old, just kind of, and of course, turn this to make it work. And just be real conscious of your seams when you're doing all this, because that was part of my problem. I think I wasn't very accurate, as accurate as I could have been on my seams, and my pressing kind of caused some issues. So press as you go, kind of. So then, there you go. So there's that one. Then I'm going to take this one and sew them together. And if life worked well for you, these two seams should match right there. Right there. And you go like this. And if you pressed your seams the correct way, they will nest together like this. You'll show them that. They kind of go opposing each other. That's very important. And that's the only place it kind of needs to match. Boom, boom, sew. And then you have your unit that looks like this. And you do this 10 times. Okay? And once you get 10 of them, 10 of your units together, then start putting them in foursies. So, start matching them up, do halvesies, get it all done, and hope that it lays flat real well. I had some trouble, and it will if you are very careful on your seaming. I'll give you one caution. It's easy as you're sewing on the little skinny end to kind of be off on your seam. And that's what I found out on one of my early ones, that I was kind of off a little, so I had to go back and kind of make that the correct size. So if by some chance your whole blade thing is a little wonky, kind of give it a good press, and then maybe all you need to do is take a little wider seam at some of these edges. And then I did that, just laid flat as a pancake. It was lovely. So, or on the other hand, be really careful throughout, okay? I'm making it sound like it's hard, but it's not that bad. Okay, here's my other trial one. I did several, you guys, so that's why I know so many, why not to do it a certain way. Okay, so, and the other thing you need, a piece of interfacing that's about the same size as the background that you cut. So you need a piece of interfacing there. So when you get your thing all sewn together, then kind of iron all the seams going one direction. Then you take your plate and put it on the interfacing, and this is the bumpy side of the interfacing. So you want the good side of your material to touch the bumpy, gluey side of your interfacing, and then boom, 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 sew all the way around. I cut part of the interfacing off, so once I've sewn it on, either 1/4 inch away, you just cut it off, because boom, 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 boom. Then you turn your block inside out, more neatly than this, of course. And you kind of just run your finger on that and kind of push that out along the lip. Okay, and I probably would even go through and kind of with a pin pull all that out and put a pin on every blade just to make sure I'm good. And then what you do, you kind of cut away a good part of the interfacing and just leave yourself about 1 inch, just a little bit. You just want to leave yourself kind of like a donut rim. I know it sounds good. It sounds kind of goofy. And exactly, if you want a good explanation, I do believe that the original inspiration for this block, the link I gave you on your instructions, I believe she goes into this. This is how she did it, I believe. So she probably has a better way of doing that. Okay. So, coming back to your background with your nice pressed quadrants, And we're just gonna assume I did such a great job on this that I don't have to do any more work. So you just kind of find your halfway mark there, halfway mark there, 1, 2, 3, 4, halfway mark there. You just kind of line up your 4 quadrants on the 4 lines that you folded, that you ironed into your background. Pin real well, and because this is the gluey side, if you press down, this will hold it into place while you stitch it down. Okay? Press, 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 press. Shh. Melt that glue so that the interfacing sticks to your background, and you notice it's pretty well centered because I've lined up this on the east-west, and I've lined up that line right there visually on the north-south, and you should be pretty good. Press this into place, and you can you could add rickrack here too if you wanted, just to mention that. You could either hand stitch this down, you could machine stitch this down, you could do a fancy decorative stitch. Lots of things you can do, okay? So once you get that done, then you will cut away the background, like we cut away the interfacing, the excess interfacing on the back. Now you do the same thing. You cut away the background that's extra. And that's a big hunk, so don't throw it away or anything. Put it in your pile because you're going to use it for little pieces. Even as we finish up these blocks, you can certainly use that for little small squares down the road. So, and you do this because you don't want all these layers in your block, because you would have your front piece, you would have your interfacing, you'd have your backing. That's 3 thicknesses in your block, but plus your seams. So by trimming away the interfacing before you adhere it and stitch it down, and then by cutting away the background once it is stitched down, you really just leave yourself just with one traditional layer of work. And it lays much better in your quilt, and it kind of behaves more, it doesn't behave all stiff and stuff. It's like a regular block. Okay, so then once you get to this part, then there is the circle. And the circle just needs to be big enough to cover this. I don't think I use anything fancy because I think at the time I could not find my fancy circles, which I don't think I've hardly ever used. I think I used a lid. I mean, you can use whatever you want, but it just has to be big enough. I think I would go maybe a little bit bigger. This is a 5-inch circle. And so you would just find a piece of fabric. Like in this case, Cindy used purple. So she just cut out, I'm just going to assume, a 5-inch circle with whatever you use for your circle. And at this point, if you want to put the stitchery in, you may. There's a little stitchery that goes with it that could fit right in there if you'd like it to. So you just get your any embroidery work that you want to do or not. And you can add rickrack if you like or not. And then you do the same thing. Once this circle fabric piece is all completed, you lay it upside down on the gluey side. So. Trim, 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 trim. Turn it inside out. Trim the interfacing away from it. And then it can be placed right where you want it. Press it down because that little slim gluey line on the other side will hold it into place. It's not meant to be permanent. It's meant to just hold it into place until you can do your final sewing it down. So, and then you're done. And then trim this to 12.5 inches. Making sure you don't get too close. Make sure it's even. Like if you notice here, I'm a little close on this side. That's a little bit too wide. But just make sure you center your block and do 12.5 inches square for your block, and then you're done. Hope that wasn't too bad. The Dresden plate is a lovely block to mess with. So once again, if you can get one of those. And if you can't and don't have any plans on quilting again, don't bother. Just use the template. It'll be just fine. Okay? And if you have any trouble, you know where Cindy and I live, or work, not where we live. And you know our email addresses, and we're always glad to help you. You can meet us at our branch, and we're glad to help you on a hard spot. And anyway, so this is just a fun bonus block we thought you'd like to do, mixing it up a little bit for your quilt. In 1904, World's Fair was such a big deal in Missouri and for our country at the time. So we thought it was worth commemorating. So hope you enjoy it, and we'd love to see your pictures on the Facebook page. Thanks.